Hey everyone, this is Mike Andes, and you're listening to the Business Bootcamp Podcast. Today we have a special episode. I have Liz, my office manager, on the episode today, but today we are going to be talking about the number 2 in your business and how important it is to have a second in command for your company, how to find them, and how to become one if you're currently an employee. Before we get into today's show, though, a big thank you to today's sponsor, which is Finagraph. If you haven't already, go to cashflowtool.com. They have offered just for us as listeners of the podcast, you get a $5 off per month when you use that code, cashflowtool.com/bootcamp. And if you're using QuickBooks, this is an absolute must-to-have. I was just emailing someone today in the landscaping industry, and they're talking about how fast their company is growing, and they have literally gone from $0 to $70,000 a month in revenue in the past 2 years. However, they still find times in their seasons when it's very busy, money's coming in, yet cash flow is low, and there's not much money in the bank. And I referred them to this tool because it's really a great way to forecast and project where your cash flow is going to be in the future and see when the times are going to get thin and when you should be laying in store for those times when payroll comes around or your big bills. So check it out today. Go to cashflowtool.com/bootcamp. So today we are going to be just chatting and having this episode with my office manager and the second in command of my company, which is Liz.
Good evening.
So basically what we want to talk about today is really about the position that Liz has at my company and what we've talked about with her going forward within the organization, and really talk about from an owner standpoint and then an employee standpoint of what's the importance of having a number 2 within your company and how to become one if you're an employee. But really for the business owners that are out there, having someone like Liz is crucial to really allowing you to succeed long term and grow your company. And for a lot of people, until they get a number 2, they can't focus on scaling a business because they get caught up in the day-to-day minutia. So really Liz's, I guess in her job description, if she had one, would be literally to take a lot of the things off my plate that distract me from thinking about the strategy of the company, hiring more people, the growth of the company. And so it's super important if you don't have a number 2 or someone that you can lean on, or someone that, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, they'd be able to pick up the pieces of the company and hold it together. If you don't have someone like that, it can be hard for you to focus on the long-term growth of the company when literally you are worried that everything is resting on you and there's no one for backup. And so really the importance of having someone in second command is very, very important. And a lot of the questions that come in is like, how do I find that person? How do I find that one person that can work as hard as I do, that can as hard as I am, and that can really fulfill a lot of the portions of the business that are just day-to-day operations, and so that I can grow and I can go focus on strategy. And so how do I find someone like that? And so, from my standpoint, we'll dig into more Liz's standpoint as far as from an employee standpoint of becoming a number 2. But how do you find someone that is second in command? So many people ask this question, and a lot of times, like I said, people kind of hit a stalling place from going from solo entrepreneur to having multiple employees because they fail to find this person that they can trust, rely on, and that can fill a lot of the gaps that they need. And so, in my opinion, there's a couple ways that you can find a number 2, and oftentimes the most natural way that number 2 or second command kind of is groomed within a company is they are one of the first employees. And the reason for that is because as time goes on, they get to see what the CEO, what the founder, you as the owner are doing. They get to see the intricacies of the business. And as you grow, they get to see the different roles and responsibilities that are needed within the organization. And so they get to see it right from the ground up. So if you look at companies like Microsoft or Apple, it all started with the co-founders being closely involved with who would later on become the day-to-day operations. So for Bill Gates, it was Steve Ballmer. For Wozniak, he was the tech aspect of Steve Jobs, who ran Apple. And so there was always that person that they could bounce things off of and become the number 2 for the company. And so, in my opinion, if you right now are a solo entrepreneur or small business owner and you're looking for that person that can be that second in command, I'd really start looking at the people who you first hired and see if you can groom them into that position. I feel it, in my opinion, it's very hard to hire a number 2, someone that can come into a business, that can take it seriously and really feel the moral, the kind of the authentic meaning of what that company was built upon. It's hard to do that if they weren't there from the beginning or from early in the process. And so many times I would look and suggest to an entrepreneur, look for someone in their organization they can groom into that position and really foster them, put them under their wing, and train them in a lot of the aspects of day-to-day operations. And this, when should you look for a second in command? It really depends. I would say as soon as you get your first employee, you should be asking yourself, is this the person that I want to groom, that I want to train to kind of become that person, that right-hand person that can lean on, depend on. If I need to leave out of town, they're the person that can keep the business afloat. And until you have that, it really goes, like, your company can scale so much faster. You can really start to focus on strategy. And really, I believe, and I think, Liz would probably affirm that this year is really the reason that we've been able to scale quite so fast and go from tripling our crew members is really just because I have been able to step out of day-to-day operation and focus on more like the strategy, long-term vision of the company, and she's taken a lot over of dispatch, taking care of issues that come up, customer service, managing the office staff, managing the guys out in the field, and really being that person that takes over a lot of the day-to-day operations. And so I'd encourage you, whether it's you're just starting out and you're looking for your first employee, keep asking yourselves the question, is this the person that's going to be my Wozniak? Is this going to be my Ballmer that I can take my company, I can be the strategy, I can be the face of the business, I can be the entrepreneur, but then have someone that can run the day-to-day operations and make sure they go smoothly. A lot of people that are entrepreneurs are going to get stuck in the minutia of business and get discouraged. When times get tough, they'll throw in the towel because they constantly are wanting the new thing, or they're constantly wanting to chase after something different, and they really need someone else to ground them and keep them balanced in a lot of areas. And so that's really why I think a number two is so important, and why someone like Liz is invaluable for your business. And I promise you, if you have one employee, if you have two, if you have three, start looking for the person that you're going to groom into your number two. And so here I'm going to kind of throw it over to Liz after talking more about from an owner standpoint. But when you're looking for a number two, and from an employee standpoint, how do you become that person? Maybe you are an employee currently, and you're asking yourself, well, how do I grow within this organization? Maybe you were hired recently and the company is growing fast and it's 10, 20 people in the organization. You're asking yourself, how do I really take advantage of the way this company is growing, and how do I become that second in command, the person that's close to the founder, the CEO? And do you have any thoughts on that, Liz?
Yeah, well, let me start back how it all began, since no one knows who I am, and how I became to be your second in command, as you say. So I was working full-time at the hospital. I was a float CNA on night shift, working 6 to 7 nights a week. And Mike gave me a call one day, and I guess as the business owner, all of you can understand when you're trying to run the office, the customers, you're working out in the field, and trying to handle all the day-to-day. And then so Mike gave me a call, and he said, I'm working over 100 hours in the office itself, and then I'm trying to do everything else. And he said, can you just stop by after work and talk to me? So he just filled me on, and kind of all he was doing, he's like, I really need help now. So I gave my 2-week notice, and then I had known Mike a long time, and I believed in the kind of person he was and what he was doing and the different business endeavors he had done before that I saw were successful. And I had always thought we would be a good team if we ever worked together. So it was a little overwhelming because he was right in the spring in April, jumping into the whole season. So
April was when I called you, right?
Yeah.
May 1st you started?
Yeah. No, like April 21st or something. So I jumped right in. It was pretty overwhelming for him because he was hiring somebody for the field as well and trying to teach me everything in the office and them. And then, of course, the customers were pretty attached to him, so getting them to, trust me to take over and handle things. So for me, it's mostly been catching the vision of him, and my personality is more, I don't want to be the person in command. I'm more of an entrepreneur who can catch the vision of the entrepreneur and support them. I don't need to be out there in the front, and he's kind of pushed me out there a little bit, way out of my comfort zone to handle certain things, but it's fine, little by little. But I'd say to find the person, it almost has to be for the owner. They have their eyes out all the time, looking for the quality of person that they would want. Maybe it wouldn't work out with somebody, but usually, and then for us, even hiring employees, some of the employees we've had were our customers, and we would see them come in to buy product and things, and then we'd say, hey, do you notice so and so? And we'd actually have them come in and then say, hey, stop by sometime. Would you like to work for us? And that's how we found employees as well. So for me, it's mostly been catching his vision. So if you see somebody that you connect with, a customer, a family member, someone you have to be careful with family members. It's we are family members. I'm actually his aunt, but we've had employees that worked for us for 7 months and never knew that. So we stay very professional. We keep everything separate, and yeah, we're a good team.
So for someone that was becoming an employee, though, like, what would you say to them as far as what should you do if you're like, hey, I want to say, for instance, like Austin comes into the company, recently hired, and is like, hey, I want to grow with this company and get closer to Mike and become, a C-level executive in this organization as we grow. Like, what would you say to someone like Austin, for instance, if he asked you that question?
Yeah, so if I was an employee and I really wanted to move up in a company, I would be really intuitive to all the details that are happening. I would look for little things to just take care of, and the owner would be like, whoa, somebody just took care of that. Oh, and it just a huge relief. And just one by one, just be a linchpin employee that the company can't really live without, and they start depending on you more and more and giving you higher levels of responsibility. And actually, you can't ignore someone like that. So if you are giving 100% every day and looking for those opportunities to do more and to be more, you will be recognized.
And I think in even a bigger organization, like, it's even proximity to that person that you want to become number two. Like, first of all, identifying who's the number one in a larger corporation, right? Or even in a place where there's co-founders, like, who's the person that actually calls the shots here? And then getting just proximity to them, whether it be like their office assistant or their personal assistant, the person that is next door to them. How do you, like, proximity alone? Because like, we're always together in the office and like figuring stuff out together. And so it's a natural progression, really.
Yeah, so if you were one of those employees, you could just say, hey to the owner, you know what? I know how to do that. Let me just take care of that for you. Let me just take that off your plate. You won't have to worry about that anymore. And then one by one, somebody's handling stuff like that. Yeah, you would definitely want them around a lot, and you'd trust them to take over more.
And even like filling in holes, like, for instance, you really complementing or balancing out, for instance, myself, that can be a little bit scattered, a little bit temperamental, things like that. Having a balance to that person's temperament and even acumen as far as business skills and things like that can be something that they would find attractive. So, for instance, if someone is really weak in answering email or communication skills, maybe that's a place that you need to excel in to fill their holes for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that anything you've done in life and any experience I have found benefits a company. So, for instance, I had a lot of experience with elderly people with dementia and, all their physical needs and mental needs and all that kind of thing. And it has been a huge benefit. You wouldn't believe it, in the lawn care and landscaping business, because there are a lot of elderly people that need their properties helped. And so the different things that I brought to the table that I can take over maybe for Mike and all of our employees, any employee that has any of that kind of extra training that they can just, in the times when it's super stressful and you're dealing with difficult customers, and then you have an employee that just handles something really smoothly, there's no value. I mean, the value to that is huge.
And I think too, like, when it comes to becoming a number two, is like, you're looking for someone that is going to inspire the people that are working for you already. And so for me, I know that you, like, for instance, the other day, Matt came in and said you were like the heartbeat of Augusta, right? And for someone like a founder, that's what I want to hear an employee telling another employee, right? Like, I don't want to always be the heartbeat, because if I'm doing something else, if I have other stuff going on, I need the heartbeat to continue.
Right. Yeah, so I guess it's for the person that's there. Once the owner can step out and build the business more, the person that's there will need to have caught the business, the vision of the business and the owner, and be able to spread that out to the employees. The ethos, and Mike and I really feel like if you build an amazing team, you could build any business. So it's really about our people. yeah, we need to make money. We all need to provide for our families. But if you focus on building a great team, people spend more time at work than anywhere else. And if you make it a great place for them to be, they're going to want to be there working with other people to make stuff happen. And guess what? You get paid for it too. So building teams, I would say, is our biggest focus.
What was that? I know you knew me before you came and worked at Augusta and stuff, but like, was there ever a moment where you felt like you kind of caught the vision of the company, or like what my vision for it was? Like, I know it's still an evolving process, but like, was there a time or specific?
No, no, I don't really have a vision for Augusta, but I think you and I together could build any company. So it's not about Augusta or any sort of business. It's this is the thing we're doing together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it comes back to building a team, really believing in the owner, and because every single customer that comes in, I want to speak to the owner, or anything that happens, if you already believe in the owner, if you really get the person, you're going to respond how they would want you to respond, and you will promote them through how you behave, and yeah.
What's like what would you say is like some of like the harder parts of being a number two though? Because like for instance, you say push you out of your comfort zone or whatever like that. Because like as the company grows, I hand things off to you, but then as the grows even more, I need you to hand those things off to the people below you. What are some of the things that you're doing now or have done recently, as we, specifically this year where we started to grow quite a bit, and I've started to diversify other things and getting more involved in podcasts, all that stuff. Like, what's some of the challenges or things you've done that, as you said, have put you out of your comfort zone?
Well, I would say I'm out of my comfort zone 99.9% of the time. It's been a huge challenge for me. So actually, Mike is the owner, and then he had hired some project managers, and they're all pretty intense guys, and I was a delicate soul. And so I realized that if I'm going to work with people like this and be at their intensity, I'm going to have to become kind of like them. So I've listened to a lot of it. We have an Audible account for all of our employees, and so Mike has a ton of entrepreneurial books in there, business books. And I just started to devour all that stuff, learn. I could kind of get into Mike's head. Okay, this is why he does this is why he does that. And I would say that would be hugely helpful for a business. If you were the employee and wanted to be that second person, find out what they listen to. How did they become the person they are in business? What did they feed on or read or listen to? Who did they meet? What kind of podcast did they hear? And I just absorbed all of that. And then there's also a lot of leadership podcasts and books that were really helpful too. And really by leading by example and building a team is so much different than it used to be. So challenges for me are, I guess, when you get really busy, it just happens that the owner just, whoop, they're not there, and now you got to deal with it. And we have built great systems. A lot of times, challenging things will happen and we will make mistakes, and we do make mistakes, but we're very transparent with our customers as well. Like some of our something we had put out to our customers once. Yeah, we're not the best, but we're better than we were 6 months ago.
That was a spring newsletter, I think.
Yeah, and we had done some jobs that we weren't amazingly well at. They didn't turn out great. The weather wasn't great, and so definitely not all our fault. But we took ownership of those things. But then people will post a bad review, and you just got to own it. And so we did. And so we make mistakes. We're growing, and yeah, did I lose my train of thought?
No,
out of my comfort zone. Yeah. So what are the other things?
You tried to talk at the offsite meeting.
Oh yes, so I was forced to speak about customer service at our offsite meeting, and I have a lot to say about that. I've learned so much, and Mike has a lot more confidence in me than I do in myself, and so he asked me to speak, and the content of what I had to say was great. However, I'm not a great public speaker, so I ended up reading. So I guess you get better by just doing it. And so I read most of it, but then I would go off script and I would tell a story about a customer or something, and how to deal with a customer. And then that's when Mike said, then I did way better and came alive, and people could connect. So let me tell you, you do things you never ever thought you would do, but now I can handle extremely difficult customers and I'm I'm really the facilitator of communication. So, yeah.
So like you say, because you're not necessarily an entrepreneur, quote unquote. And I think for a lot of people, it takes a lot of self awareness to realize that, because especially now with it being like the cool thing to do, so many people getting into it. But like when you say that, and then you say, "Well, I'm an entrepreneur," whatever. I think it takes a lot of self awareness to do that, but I think for so many people, they'd be so much better off trying to be a number two than constantly trying to be a number one. And because when you're number one, you basically live a life, your pay is based 100% commission, basically. If your company does well, you make a bunch of money. If it doesn't, you make absolutely nothing and you lose your shirt. For a number two, it's a little bit less like risky from a financial standpoint.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
a great stepping stone, I believe, to becoming a number one if that is in your goal set. To become a number two, take that safe path, learn a lot, soak the information from a number one, someone that can inspire you, give you knowledge, and really show you the ropes, and be in a safe place financially, perhaps if you have a family or you have liabilities, debt, etc., and then get to a place where maybe you become a number one down the road.
Right, right. Because the owner who is an entrepreneur, he has a vision for the company and where it's going. And really, Mike is very gifted as an individual in that way, and I'm not, and I recognize that. But I'm incredibly good at supporting what he's doing and kind of getting it. And that's what I think an entrepreneur is. And they don't need to be in the limelight, but they're the anchor, and they're like the driving force behind that person who is trying to lead the company.
What do you think are some of the areas that you fill in the gaps for me?
Basically, it's happened just by osmosis, because if you're not there, then I've got to do it. So fill in the gaps for you. There's, as we build systems, there's so many things like customer complaints. I can pretty much handle most of those.
Better than me, probably.
Difficult customers, like after a while, you have systems down and you know what the owner would want and how he would handle things, and so you don't need him to be there to do it. So I guess for me, I don't ever want to be completely running the company. However, I wouldn't mind if time progresses and I learn the stuff well enough, then I don't have the confidence in myself, but Mike believes I'm fully capable. So I guess you get more confidence as you take on those things, stuff you would never thought you could handle or do. It's really in there. It gets forced to come out.
And now, like where we're at now with the company, and everything, and we've had conversations recently about you stepping out day to day eventually, like the goals of where we want that to be and things like that, so that you can assist me more, get even closer to me, and assist in other areas of what we're doing with the business. And now, though, it kind of seems like we're at this place where like it's another transition, really, for you to become really a number two and have a number three and a number four, and people that then you train under you, while also being mentored underneath a number one, or not mentored, but necessarily taking orders or being close to. Mm-hmm. So like now that's the challenge. Mm-hmm. We're trying to, the same thing that we did for me in the past year, we're trying to start developing for you. Mm-hmm. What are some of those challenges now as the company is growing, and now you're switching from the role of being the one that absorbs information to the one that now has to process that information and disseminate it to people below you?
Mm-hmm. Well, transition is always a very difficult thing. However, we transition every other minute. Like, we are a fluid, evolving, fast-moving company, and we change things on the fly pretty fast. And so you have to be pretty adaptable. But overall, I'd say our transition thing right now is almost like Mike said the other day, we almost get in each other's way to a certain degree, because like he knows I can handle stuff, but he's always handled it. And so, for instance, one of the employees will ask me something. We all use the WhatsApp, and so they'll be communicating with me on the phone, asking me about their route or how to do something. And he's in the room, and he turns around and he answers the question, or tell him da 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 da. And so the other day this was happening, and well, even today,
I got this.
Today, he's like, the phone rings. We're having a conversation. He's like, you can get that. Seriously? I know I can get the phone. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And thankfully, we can laugh about this. So the other day when that happened, so finally I looked at it and I put out my hand speak to the hand, and I said, I've got this. And of course, he burst out laughing, and so now it's a joke, like, he's got this. And so it's a good joke. So fortunately, we have great sense of humor, and even when it's pretty stressful, we can find the humor in everything. But
as a number two, though, like, how do you like really trust the vision of the number one? For instance, like, you knew me before, but like, let's say you didn't. Like, how does that person really give themselves over to the point of where it's like, okay, I'm going to follow the, like, regardless, because like you said, it's not necessarily Augusta.
Right.
You're really a number two to me, and then whatever I'm pursuing or following or trying to accomplish, like, you're supportive of that. Like, how does that come about in someone's mindset, and when, like, what needs to happen there?
Right. Well, I think a lot of times, so like you have your business, your personal, you have these different aspects of your life, and you could have someone that you work with business in, but you never touch other areas of their life. So you would never, maybe you'd never meet their family or any of that kind of stuff. So on a business level, I think you would have boundaries. So you would say that, everything we do is all strictly about business. So I am yours 100%. We're doing this. I'm catching the vision of you in regards to your business. So I might not agree with anything you do in your personal life or other stuff like that. But I think that, like in my position with Mike, I knew all the aspects of his life. So I had already seen a lot of positive things in his education and discipline. Mainly, I'm a very disciplined person as well. So, and we're both type A, very organized, attention to detail. So, because I know he's like that, then I know that is going to be a part of, permeate everything he does. But I'd say for someone else, not everybody has the advantage of me already having full confidence in him as a person. You might not have that with your boss or even the person you want to hire as your second in command. So I think you'd have to have boundaries like that in business, we're doing this 100%. I believe in you 100% for this.
But there's got to be moments when you question, I'm not saying necessarily you, but like that number two is going to like wonder, is this the right path to be? Is it worth throwing myself towards this one person? And you're going to question their judgment or like a certain decision.
Well, absolutely.
Or a hire, for instance.
Yeah, well, guess what? You're working with humans and people are flawed and they always will be. And I think you just can't expect too much of people. Like, people are people. They get sick and they don't feel good and they don't fuel well and they don't sleep well and they get on each other's nerves. And at those times you're going to be like, what in the world am I working for you for? And vice versa. Like, oh my word, you're making really bad personal decisions. I don't know if I want you here. Like, you're going to have that. And so at times you would have to transition out. Like, even when we hire employees, we leave it really open that you might not always be here. We get that. But while we're here together, we're going to make each other better. We're going to make our lives better. We're going to build good teams. We're going to build a great thing and a great business. So maybe you won't always be with that person. Maybe it'll just be for a season. But you'll build something great together. I mean, there's a lot of great people.
Get the skills to move on to something, even if you become a number one.
Yeah, or you just decide, hey, we're kind of clashing a lot, and this is not working out well. I need to go do my own thing. But you've built something great together, and you just move on, So life is fluid. Life changes so much. People's lives change, and so you just got to be open to that.
Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you for coming on.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And from me to you, thank you for being such an amazing number two.
You're welcome.
Support and everything craziness that I do.
Thank you for being awesome to work for.
So, yes. All right, well, everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Business Bootcamp Podcast. If you have a question on how to start, grow, or save your business, or if you have a question on how you can find your number two and groom them to become your second in command, let me know. Go to businessbootcamppodcast.com. Go to the apply section or email me at businessbootcamppodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, be great, because nothing else pays.